Ford just revealed some information about its car company. It released its Q3 2022 results. The media is painting this like some pretty picture. It's great. It's awesome. The truth is very different. In fact, vastly different. Here are the facts. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing and supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can also support us on Patreon. I'll put a link in the description below to our Patreon page. And just want to say a big shout out to you guys on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting us. Really appreciate what you guys do. Ford, Q3 results. I've read the results on numerous different websites. They're all painting these results as though it's some great win. It's this big success. I don't know why. I mean, the bottom line here is, I'm just going to get straight to the facts. Here's the bottom line, right? Okay, General Motors posted more than $4 billion in profit. Now, revenue is not that relevant, really. Profit is what matters the most for companies right now who are spending enormous amounts of money, trying to transform their companies into being something they're not. Ford is not really an electric vehicle producer. I mean, less than 5% of their cars are EVs, right? Same thing GM, they need cash. Everyone needs cash to transition or to ramp up EV production. So that's why profit matters. And GM, what did I just say? Nearly $4.5 billion in profit on revenue of about $44 billion, which is a record for the company. So they made a pretty good amount of profit. Good result for GM. Toyota, $22 billion of revenue. They made about $5.5 billion in profit. So very good result for Tesla. Ford, on the other hand, well, the media is saying, and Ford's saying, we made a profit. We did, but we didn't. Okay, let's just break it down and be logical here. Ford made a loss. Why? Because they made a loss. It doesn't really matter. They just made a loss. But okay, here's why. Ultimately, it came down to this. Two things. Ford posted a $1.28 billion loss following the decision to close Argo AI. Now, Argo AI was the full self-driving division. They were working on autonomous driving for Ford and Volkswagen. Both companies owned, I believe, about 50% each of the company. Volkswagen went, these guys suck. They're not doing the job. We're out. We're gone. We're doing it. We're doing it elsewhere, right? Maybe it's something to do with their Chinese investment of $2.3 billion US in the software company in China. I don't know. Possibly. And Ford was like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, let's try and sell it. And they tried. No one wanted them. So they are disbanding the company completely. Ford have tried to paint this in a different way. They're trying to say, well, we're going to poach the best software people from this company and bring them into Ford, and we're going to do it in-house. But Ford have also admitted that they are no longer going to work on really any form of full self-driving. They're going to work on level 2, sort of, in a way. They're going to bring it in-house, and they're not going to worry about it because they've said that, or they've basically said autonomous driving is much harder than everyone thought, and it's a long way away. It's too far away to care. Don't worry about it. Let's just focus on our core principles. Now, that actually does make sense in some ways. In other ways, it could be dangerous for them if someone like Tesla is able to actually make it happen, and they're not in a position to make it happen. However, they could also just simply license this software and technology from some other company in the future. So it may be a good decision, but it doesn't really matter. My key point here is Ford didn't actually make a profit in Q3, as people are saying they are. I mean, what? Come on. Just tell the truth. You made a loss. Doesn't matter how you made a loss. You can't have your cake and eat it. I'm sure you've heard that expression, right? Ford are trying to have their cake and eat it. What do I mean by that? Well, Ford claimed a $9 billion gain on their investment in Rivian once Rivian's stock price went up, right? Even though they weren't even able to sell it. It was a completely illiquid investment. They couldn't sell it until the moratorium period was over. By the time the moratorium period was over, the market had woken up somewhat and Rivian stock had tanked by 80%. But the key point is, they said they made a huge profit based on something they couldn't even sell. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that'd be like Tesla saying, oh, our share price has just doubled this year. So we made a profit of, $200 billion. They could essentially say that. That's just, I don't understand why companies can do that. Anyhow, let's get to the facts. And before I do though, I want to make a key point. Ford is actually in a very good financial position in comparison to all of its competitors except for Tesla. Tesla is well and truly ahead. Tesla has basically no debt and a whole lot of cash in the bank, and factories that only make EVs. That's a very enviable position to be in. And if you think I'm a Tesla fan or a Tesla stan or a Tesla groupie or whatever for saying that, well, then you think the same thing about who? Jim Farley, Herbert Diess. They've said the exact same thing as what I just said. So there's no point arguing with that. That's an established fact, okay? But if you compare Ford's actual real financials, their debt, what that debt is, and their current cash position in comparison to General Motors, Toyota, Volkswagen, or in particular, in comparison to Volkswagen and Toyota, they're in a much healthier state. Much, much healthier. The difference is so big. I'm going to make a video about it and show you the difference and show you why actually Ford's debt mostly is good debt, Toyota's debt mostly is bad debt. Big, big difference between those two companies. Now, for those of you wondering why I haven't yet talked about Toyota's third quarter results, it's because they don't release them until, I don't know, until everyone else has gone to sleep, everyone's in bed, and not really, but they're going to release them sometime in November, which is, it's a joke. They're about as slow as releasing their financial results as they are in building electric cars. Anyhow, Ford's revenue, what was it? It was $39.4 billion. So not a long ways off General Motors, actually. In fact, pretty close. It was actually an increase as well of 10% from last year. Operating profit, $1.8 million, was in line with Wall Street forecasts and above Ford's recent guidance. Of course, that's for the automotive sector of the business. Meanwhile, Ford achieved strong operating cash flow of $3.8 billion in Q3. Adjusted free cash flow of $3.6 billion is pushing the automaker's full year guidance to between $9.5 billion and $10 billion. Ford believes the third quarter set the company up for a solid finish to the year and anticipates 2022 operating profit of around $11.5 billion, or about 15% from previous forecasts. To reach this, Ford says it will take 10% year-on-year growth in wholesale shipments. Now, despite this, like I said, the bottom line figure is actually a net loss of $827 million US. That's due to the $2.7 billion loss on their Argo AI investment, and also the fact they got that $1 billion hit on inflation charges, right? The increase in parts cost for Ford, they said, was average 13 to 20% over the third and second quarter of this year. That's a big difference, which gave them a $1 billion fee. Ford's Q3 2022 earnings, they were influenced by two things. Supply shortages resulting in around 40,000 vehicles sitting in inventory awaiting parts, and a higher than expected supplier payment of the $1 billion I just spoke about. So ironically, a lot of those 40,000 vehicles simply don't, well, amongst other things, don't have a Ford badge on them. Seriously, Ford doesn't make the badges themselves. The company that makes them is struggling to make enough badges for some reason. Not sure why. So Ford, my suggestion is make the badges yourself. So as a result, the company ended the quarter with $32 billion in cash and $49 billion in liquidity. What do we mean by liquidity? Well, that's pretty complex. I'll go into that in precise detail in a video that's going to come out within the next few days, which has a good look at Ford's real financials. And I'm going to really compare those to GM and Toyota, just to give you some context on what's really going on at Ford. What's really going on at Ford is very different to other automakers. The key reason why is the majority of Ford's debt is actually good debt. A lot of people don't know this. However, Ford's Q3 electric vehicle progress is this. Ford says it is on track for a 600,000 electric vehicle run rate by the end of 2023 and 2 million by 2026. That's a bit of a misleading number. I don't think Ford should be able to represent it that way. Everyone's doing it. GM's doing it. But it doesn't mean they're going to make that many EVs next year, 600,000. They're not saying that. They're saying they will be capable of hitting an annualized average by December of 600,000, meaning in theory, they'll probably produce around 600,000 in 2024, not in 2023. One other thing that I spoke about on this YouTube channel, in fact, it was one of the most popular videos on the channel recently, was this. In Q3, Ford set new US dealership requirements for dealers to boost electric vehicle deployment. They're very punitive though. Dealers are pretty much being asked to spend about $1.2 million on revamping their dealerships in order to support the electric vehicle sales that they have planned on. And they have to commit now pretty much, or they're going to be basically shunned. They won't be able to sell EVs from Ford in the future. If you want to know more about that story, I'll put a link in the description below to that video. Now, other good news is that the Ford will shift focus to actually increasing production of the Mustang Mach-E while continuing to scale its E-Transit production. Now, we don't actually know if the Ford Mustang Mach-E will qualify for the US tax incentive, $7,500, which is set to start in January. We don't know yet. I don't know if Ford knows yet. I'm guessing it probably won't, but we'll find out soon. Ford said that in Europe, where it has led the commercial sector for 7 years, in fact, Ford is Europe's fourth biggest car maker, it has revealed the E-Transit Custom, the electric van that they sell in the US. And obviously Ford dominate the commercial market in the US, but it's still a very, very tiny market. So that could change rapidly within the space of a few months. However, Ford says that to meet these targets that we've just talked about, Ford will continue to secure raw materials and battery capacity. And its investments in Rivian remained under $1 billion in the third quarter. And well, as I predicted, as soon as Ford could do so, they sold the majority of their stock. right? So I made a video before the moratorium period ended when Ford owned Rivian, saying that as soon as they could, as soon as the moratorium ended, the 6-month period, Ford would sell the majority of their stock, which they did so in Rivian. Now, Ford has said it thinks it will meet the requirements for certain Mach-E and F-150 Lightning models to receive the federal EV tax credit. It thinks for certain models. It thinks. I can understand why it's confused because everyone's confused. I think it's more likely it won't meet them for the Mustang Mach-E and it will meet them for the F-150 pickup. But I could be wrong on that. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So what else did Ford do during Q3? Well, its market share grew in North America to 12.8%, which was an increase of 1.7% year on year. In Europe, it increased to 6.6%, which was up 0.4% year on year, but it did lose market share in Europe last year. So it's actually still down on where it was at in 2019. In China, Ford's market share dropped 0.5% year on year to 2%. The company noted a quarterly loss due to investments in electric vehicles in the region. Ford Pro, Ford's portfolio of business services and products, continues gaining momentum. This is where they make their real money. With the company's electric commercial van, the E-Transit, holding a solid lead in full-size commercial trucks and vans in the US, 90%, and Europe. What I mean by they make their real money? Well, what I mean is, Ford makes the majority of their profits selling the F-150 Lightning. And where are they sold primarily? North America, right? Canada and the US. Ford knows that. And Ford knows it will stand to gain massive amounts of money from the US government in subsidies, credits, subsidies, etc. Not only for the vehicles themselves, not only for the battery packs, but also for the cells and producing those cells. And that's why I believe Ford is going to focus primarily over the next decade on producing particularly EVs in the US, but producing cars in the US as well. So starting next year, Ford will report in 3 business segments. Those will include Ford Model E for electric vehicles, Ford Pro, its business products and services, and Ford Blue ICE vehicles as the company gets ready to accelerate EV sales. It's already fired like 8,000 people working for its gasoline-powered sectors over the past 6 months. Not sure that was the right strategy to make. I think they could do what some other companies such as GM are doing, which is retrain them to work in the EV sectors. However, Ford believes it needs to cut costs in order to make more cash to invest in its EVs. And that is the key issue here that I take away. Although Ford is definitely in a good financial position, I know people probably think I'm crazy saying that, but when you see their debt profile, you'll understand what I mean. Although that's the case, they still are saying they're going to be funding their electric vehicle expansion, the factories, the many billions of dollars they're going to invest on building that Ford University or EV production. They're saying to pay for that, they need to take profits from ICE vehicle sales to pour into it. Now, obviously, they only made a loss in this quarter overall. Losing $800 million is peanuts, really, it's nothing. But still, it means rather than investing more money into that division, they have to actually take money out, in a sense. That's what's sort of happening here. And that's why these results aren't so great. I mean, if they've made what GM did, $4.5 billion, they can then pour $4.5 billion into their electric vehicle ramp up. But that's not what happened. That said, I still think Ford will be in position to meet its electric vehicle goals, or at least I hope so. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.